I'm doing great. How are you doing?
I'm doing all right. I'm doing all right. Yeah, I have to say, some of the best news that we've gotten in a few years was seeing Nebraska join the other 48 states now that have passed
Yeah,
some type of medical cannabis legislation. And
right.
honestly, I never thought we were going to color in that that state. So
Yeah, you and I both. Definitely has been a long journey and but ex very exciting, overwhelming support for medical cannabis in the state of Nebraska when the voters voted on it, this past November. Not surprising, but obviously seeing those results, just really lets you know that you've been fighting for something that the people do support. So, yeah, big news here in the central part of the US.
it's just I mean it's I grew up in Texas and in Oklahoma, and been watching that area very closely because it seems like that's sort of the bellwether. But um, you know uh, not that you don't already have enough weight on your shoulders, but it means a lot to the country, right? That Nebraska has moved forward. So I know there's a lot that happens beyond the headlines, so I want to really get into like what is happening now, and like what's the journey look like for patients to actually have access in Nebraska.
Absolutely. So I think it's important when we share Nebraska's story to look where this started and where we are today. The issue of medical cannabis was something that a group of advocates, of parents, very much like myself, who have a child that, we are very hopeful that medical cannabis treatment, can be effective for. They started going to the legislature in Nebraska and saying this is a really important issue. We're looking around at other states. And if we live somewhere else, our children may have access, to this what could be life-saving medicine. And so that was back 2014, 2015, when the first bills were brought dealing with medical cannabis access. And year after year after year since 2014, there has been a bill brought. We've had several champion senators who came alongside and said, this is an issue I want to speak up on. I want to work on this. But despite every ability for us to concede to things, to narrow it down, to make concessions on not including certain individuals in these bills, we still walked away with nothing. And so in 2020, Nebraskans for Medical Marijuana, this advocacy group, decided to take it to the ballot firsthand, let people vote on it. We were overwhelmingly successful getting the signatures, but were later tossed off the ballot over a single subject issue that the Supreme Court ruled that medical cannabis access and medical cannabis recommendation are absolutely two different subject matters. Therefore, they should have been different petitions. So we regrouped, we ran it again in 22. I took over the campaign as the campaign manager at that time. I don't identify myself as a campaign manager or anyone in politics, to be quite honest, not a lobbyist, not anything. I truly believe I'm an advocate. This issue is extremely important to me. I have a son who is now 10, who has a form of epilepsy that has not been controlled through traditional treatment methods. And so a little after he turned 3, the issue of or the subject of medical cannabis came up with his doctors out of Nebraska, out of state. And, they basically said you can move or you can go back home and legalize it. And I will tell you, I thought, how hard could this be to convince some lawmakers that I believe have the best interest of all of those in our states to let me give my child some cannabis oil. And clearly, again, that was about now 7 years since I got involved. And so really threw myself into this effort alongside many, many other individuals who, again, have stories just like my own families. So took over 2022. We ran a campaign. We came in under the signature requirement. We ran a completely grassroots, just volunteer campaign. And so we really regrouped. We came back in 24, had two statutory initiatives that we put before voters. The first one dealt with patient protections and the recommendation of cannabis. And then the second one was basically a regulatory, very, very broad regulatory framework to implement medical cannabis access. Those we were successful getting the signatures. And then right before they certified for the ballot, there was some challenges that came our way. And since August 30th, September 12th, sometime in there, we have just been, thrown one lawsuit after another, after another, after another, for many different reasons, stemming from claiming in the beginning that we didn't have enough signatures, then kind of shifting to say that these signatures were fraudulent for some reason and that we shouldn't be on the ballot. Uh, then the state seemed to join in with a private individual bringing a lawsuit. And so it turned into this, what, me personally telling you, from my perspective is, this massive uh, amount of money with a small amount of people who oppose this, trying to do everything they can, throw everything in the kitchen sink at the wall, hoping something sticks. And, you know, the great thing is they have not been successful. They have lost every step of the way, down to they wanted a judge to stop the vote count when this went before voters on election day. The judge did not buy that. They tried to stop the governor from fulfilling his duties to sign the declaration and sign these statutes into law. They were not successful with that. And now we find ourselves in a phase of appeal after appeal after appeal. And as well as a new lawsuit, the most recent one, which is that these laws cannot be enacted in the state because they are federally preemptive. So that's where we're at. It's been incredibly, it's been a difficult journey. I think as I talk to people in the industry, those people have been advocates who have been doing what I've been doing, in their own home state or wherever they're located. This is a very common thing of,
Yeah.
man, this just makes sense. It should be easy. We should be able to, have reasonable conversations with other people on this, including lawmakers, but that just has not been how this has gone. And so I feel like Nebraska is not unique in the challenges we've faced, but some of these legal challenges that we're seeing now, I would say most people who have seen a lot would say, wow, but I've never seen this.
Yeah, I would say the veracity of, because it's really coming from the Attorney General. A lot of people don't know that Attorney Generals oversee elections, and so they have a lot of power in the states. And we definitely have seen all sorts of creative avenues to stop things from moving forward, including preemption claims, which, by the way, the federal courts have basically disproved that.
Yeah.
We actually won some lawsuits in California where we had police that were taking patients' medicine at like routine traffic stops, and then the patient would go to get the medication right after they were proven that it was theirs and they were following the law, and the city or the law enforcement said that they couldn't give it back because that would be breaking federal law. Right. And so we were suing that city, and actually, to our delight, they decided to take it to the federal court, and went to
Okay.
the fourth appellate district and said, hey, we think that federal law preempts state law. And the judges sent it back and said, no, actually, it is not the job of police in California to uphold federal law. And they took it to the appellate court, and we won there. And then they tried to get the Supreme Court to review it, and they granted cert. And then we had one more case where the county of San Diego, which is very conservative, very conservative. I mean, you would think you were in, I mean, I would imagine, like when I was working in there, like I was like, this reminds me of Oklahoma, or like they still pray before every session of the.
Okay. Okay. It's similar, a very probably similar environment to
Yes,
Nebraska.
very so, yeah. And so they said that they did not want to implement an ID card program because at the time in the state of California, the ID card program was being implemented at the county level. And so they refused to do it. And so we joined a lawsuit with a bunch of our members in San Diego. And again, they took it to the federal courts. And the federal courts were clear, like, no, like this, like federal law does not preempt the ability of states. They can exist in conflict, basically. And
Right.
so And what was interesting is that when we won that lawsuit, there were actually a lot of states that had passed medical cannabis laws either through the legislature or through the ballot initiatives that were on hold. That really like they were doing basically what you're experiencing there,
Mhm.
saying like we can't implement this because it would be breaking federal law. And when we
Right.
won that lawsuit, they all started implementing, right? Because
Okay.
they got their answer. So I think, the other thing I just feel like in the same way that I see Nebraska as being very important, I think our opponents see Nebraska as being very important as well. Like it's really the last state in the
Yep.
heartland, right? And so we're also seeing like your senator, Ricketts, who was one of the last of the anti-cannabis people. Like he's been introducing anti-cannabis legislation for years, getting
Yes.
involved and
Yes.
weighing in. And it's so hypocritical of these sort of states' rights views.
Right.
Yeah.
It
So
is. It's extremely frustrating to, especially after bringing something to the ballot, being successful. The voice of the people has clearly spoken. So our two initiatives passed at a statewide amount of 71%. We have 49 legislative districts, and our patient protection passed in every single legislative district. The regulatory, I think, was 46 of the 49. But this was not just, yeah, they kind of supported. This was overwhelmingly. I think our highest district was 89% support.
it's
And so, very, very clearly, this is what the people are asking, their elected officials to do. And they've been asking for many, many, many years as we've brought bill after bill after bill. And so, unfortunate that it took going to the ballot to do this, but one of the great things about Nebraska is we are a ballot initiative state. And so, we regard that process at such a high level. It's in our constitution that the people are the second house. Their voice does matter. So to see not only in these lawsuits that are coming after this campaign, after this issue, after the people that are intricately have been involved, there have been criminal charges filed against individuals on very, what I would say, again, personally, I'm not an attorney, but very meritless arguments. It has really been, there's a lot of scare tactics, intimidation. I it's been really hard to see something that not just myself, but so many people have worked so hard for, and to see these people in court being brought and their integrity attacked, and how they did things or why this issue motivates them, what drives them. I myself am a defendant in several lawsuits, and because of that, I ran this ballot initiative, and to try to fight to be on the right side of the law. That's why we started this, right? Is we don't want patients to have to be criminals. I don't want another mother to wonder where she goes to get safe medical cannabis for her child. I want something that's regulated and safe that provides people with medicine. That's what this is. And so to fight to be on the right side of the law, so we're not breaking laws, and we're not to then find ourselves in a situation where we're being attacked and lawsuits being brought against us, and having a pointing finger at us saying there was wrongdoing. Um, Again, extremely tough, both personally and then obviously just again as the greater whole of this mission. But I do want to make sure that when people look up Nebraska and they're going to see, man, lawsuit after lawsuit and challenge after challenge, they have lost on every single one.
right.
There has not been one court, one judge who has said that any of their claims have any basis. And so I think that's obviously what we want to hold on to and make very clear is that we continue to fight extremely hard for again the vote of the people to be upheld, make sure none of this crazy lawmakers trying to claim we're doing things, to make sure we disprove that and continue fighting. But I will say it's very hard. We've been a grassroots campaign, completely just led by volunteers. We didn't have millions of dollars for a petition drive. Our ballot initiative had about $1 million. We collected 120,000 signatures on two initiatives. I believe it went down as the most signatures collected by a campaign. And we also took home, the medal for with the least amount of money.
Yeah.
And that just really is a testament to obviously the support, but also the hard work that patients and caregivers, individuals that should be at home with their loved ones that are dying of cancer. You know what they were doing? They were out collecting signatures. They were out talking to community members. And so I think one of the most grassroots efforts that Nebraska has ever seen. Um, and while that is amazing and wonderful and truly, again, attests to the spirit and conviction and dedication behind the issue, it makes it really hard when you have millions of dollars coming at you trying to take you down. And so that's been a really, a huge challenge for our campaign. I would love for people watching out there to, get involved. We see every single penny and every dollar that comes in, and we know how it needs to be used, whether that's advocating for now the legislative process that we're watching kind of be an absolute nightmare as well, or again, just funding these legal challenges, which I think are not only important for Nebraska to make sure we continue fighting, but I think for just this, medical cannabis and initiatives and legislation, across the nation,
And really
for these
democracy. I
courts to
mean,
be
yeah,
weighing in.
absolutely.
Yes, it absolutely, directly affects Nebraskans, but this is such a bigger issue. This is not just about Nebraska. To be honest, the ballot initiative process, this is bigger than medical cannabis even.
Yeah,
This is
absolutely.
really a direct attack at the petition process and at the will of the people. I think it's important. That should make anybody very frustrated. That should enrage a lot of people that there is the ability to try to destroy something
Yeah.
that's ingrained in a constitution. So, if anybody wants to know more, nebraskamarijuana.org is
Nice.
our website. That was the ballot committee. We have now moved on to just existing as a C4, so continuing to advocate. And what we have seen is upon passing in December, when the governor signed them into law, which, we get a question of, is Nebraska a legal state right now? Is it not? And the governor signed our two statutory initiatives into law December 12th of last year. And so, yes, medical cannabis is legal for a patient to possess. The language just basically says a written recommendation from a healthcare practitioner is needed. We were not able to put a lot of details and the single subject issue, right? You can't have anything that turns into another subject. And so that makes it very difficult on an issue like this, that there does need to be more direction, more framework, oftentimes more regulation. We couldn't do that. And so we find ourselves in a gray area. We've got the attorney general and the entire, top state officials suing us, saying this isn't legal, giving that message to people, to patients in our state that this isn't legal. It is, you are still going to get in trouble. I, that message is out there, but right now patients should, under the law, be able to get help. Fortunately, there's not doctors who are acting. They're finding themselves in this area of like, we don't know what to do. Been given no guidance. There's no legislative framework that has been passed. So a really, really unfortunate place for patients to be. I feel like it's unfortunate for practitioners to be facing this uncertainty. Law enforcement that has been given no direction, no insight on what they should or shouldn't be doing. And so what we see now is very much what we expected. The one petition dealt with the regulations, and we could not put in there how, what the license process or
Right.
what, application process, where these dispensaries will be, how many there will be, how patients will access it. None of that could be written. We would have had, 120 different petitions
Right.
to do that. And so we very much expected for once legislative session came around here in January, for there to be some bills brought forward dealing with our language. And we, as Nebraskans for Medical Marijuana, myself as just a personal advocate, are very supportive of good framework, regulation that makes sure that patients have safe access, that this medicine is being tested and packaged appropriately. We want this to be treated as a medicine. This isn't alcohol. And what we're seeing is a lot of these bills want to put it under, this this other umbrella, and that's not what this is.
Right.
But there are regulations, there are framework that do need to be creative to make sure that patients have access in the first place. That there's adequate access, that there's not all these barriers for patients to jump through, which we know they have to do that enough already. And so seeing legislation come through that just is making more difficult, more difficult, more difficult because of a few people that don't like this issue. Again, we expected it, but it is so hard to see. Currently, there were 4 bills brought before the legislature that dealt with the regulatory side of this.
Mhm.
Several were not good. They essentially kind of stripped right away what the people passed. We were successful in being able to kill those, to keep them in committee, not advance
Congratulations.
them. But there is one, LB 677, and a moderate Republican senator here in Nebraska has really done a phenomenal job in trying to respect what the people passed, make sure we don't touch, the right now to medical cannabis access, but trying to expand it and make it better. Again,
Mhm.
make it safer, support a good industry that
Yep.
people want to get involved with, make it good for patients, but also keep it good for the state as a whole. And so Senator Hansen has done a phenomenal job, really taking, feedback from us who have been working on this issue for many years, who have been studying it, have been waiting for the day we get to talk about Nebraska's rollout.
Right, right.
And our message to them is Nebraska, as one of the absolute last states to do something on this issue, is in an incredible place to roll out what could be the best medical program that a state has ever
Right,
rolled out. And I
right.
believe it's not just an opportunity, it really is our responsibility
Mhm.
to do that because we have waited so long and now we have seen what other states have gotten wrong. We've seen what other states have gotten right. And so I'm urging these lawmakers that are considering this regulation to look at this through the eyes of, again, the people passed it. I represent the people, and now it's my job to make sure we do it correctly. We do as good of a job on this initial, framework, because we don't want to have to keep coming back, and we don't want to continue having lawsuits, and we want to avoid that as much as we can. It won't be perfect, but unfortunately, what we are seeing now in the eve of basically a committee vote to get what was a very good, strong bill out of committee, we are seeing a couple senators come in and unfortunately really strip away what the people passed, completely gut this voter initiative statute. And I can't tell you what's going to happen.
Yeah, yeah.
Our initiatives are self-enacting. And so if legislation does not pass, which it is not required to, on or before July 1 of this year, meaning just
Mhm.
like 3 months from now, the Medical Cannabis Commission, that includes the members of the Liquor Control Commission, they have a job to put out rules and regulations in 3 short months. There is unfortunately no appropriations of any funds for them to do that. And so we see a commission that's tasked with something that is very, very important. And what they're being tasked with is a huge job. Takes a lot of work. And so that's why we're supportive of giving this commission through legislation some framework to follow, helping them, guiding them. But I really see a scenario where the bill that is being brought forward, depending on how it gets out of committee, it will go onto the floor where our 49 senators will debate on it. I I am losing trust in our state legislators that they are going to do the right thing. They are going to adhere to what voters passed. And so I can see us likely killing a bill, letting a bill just die. Because again, it goes against what the people passed. And
Right.
then we take a gamble at what this process now looks like without any legislation.
And a couple questions. So, within the Nebraska state legislature, so can every state has a little bit of different laws around their initiative process, and so can the state legislature change the voter initiative? Some
Yeah,
states
so
they
they
don't let them. Sometimes there has to be a majority or a
the
super
majority. Yep.
majority.
So we need 33. We have 49 state senators. Nebraska is a unicameral, which is the only unicameral in the nation. And
Yes.
what that is that we technically, nobody runs as a Democrat or Republican. It's a nonpartisan system of government. And then again, this is a testament to the importance of the ballot process is we have 49 senators, but the House, we call it the second House, is the people.
Yeah.
And so again, it's a very unique system of government. And I think at its core is phenomenal, right? But just like anything, it doesn't function that way. And so we still very much have, the partisanship and all of that. But it will need 33 votes, which is a majority. And we feel very confident that we have the votes to stop a bad bill,
Right.
to kill it. But we know there's risk in that as well,
Yeah.
is as the commission rolls things out, if they do, if they can, we already know the Attorney General has made it very clear that there is more litigation to come to to absolutely make sure this does not happen and it
Yeah.
does not function.
Right. And why, and I saw, I think you shared with me, the op-ed that, Senator Rickett and the AG put out about not doing anything,
Yeah,
which, it's my least favorite way of policy making is not doing
right.
anything. But what, is that their strategy? Just that some lawsuit will eventually kill it?
I believe so. I mean, I think that's what we've seen, right? Is attempt after attempt, all the way from right field to left field to again make sure that this wasn't on the ballot, number one. Then it was to make sure the results weren't actually counted. Then it was to keep the governor. I mean, we just see every angle that they can attack this, they are. And so because there's legislative bills, and I think some of it's we have gotten behind, we as advocates, and we as, again, it's not a ballot committee anymore, but we who have worked on the ballot initiative are we finding ourselves in a place where we're kind of begging with these folks yet again.
Yep.
And now we're begging for regulations. We're begging them to do something with this.
Right.
But yes, the attorney general and then our former governor, who's now uh, our state or our U.S. Senator, Pete Ricketts, have for as long as they've been around been huge opponents of this. I believe that the attorney general and again Senator Ricketts, you could appropriately term that they have made this their mission as
Yep.
long as they has been elected officials to be opposed to this issue and to actively work against anything that the people, anything that the governing body of the legislature has tried to do. And so the most recent thing was something that I believe was very threatening, that the legislature should not do anything. They should not act on this. They, don't believe that it's legal, therefore state lawmakers should not do anything. And I think that's incredibly sad.
Yeah.
I think it's an abuse of power. I
Absolutely.
think that this has gone on far too long and gotten to a point it's very, very nasty. And when you've got state elected officials threatening other elected officials, threatening to sue, existing bodies of people, commissions of people, I just it's incredibly sad, but it also, it fuels us to keep fighting. And I think as hard as this journey has been, there has never been a moment or very few moments or moments that I don't want to share
Right.
that I have thought this just isn't worth it. Like we just should be done. Let's just walk away. And so we will continue to fight. We will continue to throw ourselves in the lobby process and to try to work alongside lawmakers and come to some common ground. But at the end of the day, the people pass this, and any attempts to destroy what the people passed will not be tolerated. And the people of Nebraska will be very, very loud with their voice. And we want people to continue being loud. Unfortunately, it passed, and yes, this should be over and done, and we should be on our way. That's just not how it works. And so we want to encourage people keep getting involved. We need people's voice. We need people's support. Sharing podcasts like this to let people know, hey, I know Nebraska is a flyover state. I know there's not maybe desire for everybody to know about what's going on in Nebraska, but I think it's very important, not just for our state, but for the future, for other ballot initiatives, for other legal challenges. So yeah, thank you for letting me share my story.
Of course, Krista. No, I mean, on one hand, I just want you to, I want to let you know that there is a movement behind you. That American Safe Access, we're definitely going to help put out some action alerts and course, you can write a blog, and I'll put all the information about donating in the notes here for this webinar. But also, I sort of remind people like this is bigger than medical cannabis. This is about democracy, right? This is really about intimidating someone in such a public way so that others are afraid to stand up and participate in
Absolutely.
democracy. And
Yeah.
so we're just so grateful that they haven't run you off, and that you're still working for a better future for medical cannabis patients in Nebraska. So we'll stay tuned, and we'll make sure that our members know how to get involved. So thank you. Of
Wonderful. Thanks so much for having me on.
course.